What if I told you that right now, buried beneath the sand of the world's largest desert, there is a city, a real city, with streets, and castles, and pyramids, and a technology so advanced that modern engineers still can't fully explain how it worked. A civilization that shouldn't have existed, in a place where nothing should survive. And the most disturbing part? We've known about it for years, and almost nobody is talking about it. Here is something that will completely change how you see the Sahara Desert. 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was green, not slightly green, completely, abundantly, unrecognizably green. Grasslands stretching for thousands of miles. Rivers, lakes, wildlife. Ancient rock paintings found deep in the desert show hippos, crocodiles and cattle in places that now receive zero rainfall every year. This period is called the Green Sahara, and it ended approximately 5,000 years ago. When the rain stopped, the grasslands dried up, the rivers disappeared, the wildlife vanished, and the people, most of them left, but not all of them. One civilization stayed behind, in conditions almost identical to today's burning, merciless desert. And what they built there is one of the greatest achievements in the entire history of human civilization. Their name was the Garamantes, and chances are, nobody ever told you they existed. Flourishing from around 500 BC to 700 AD, over 1,200 years, they built the first urban civilization ever established in a desert without a continuously flowing river. Read that again. The first, in all of human history. No Nile, no Euphrates, no river at all, just sand. And yet, at its peak, their capital city of Garama had a population of 4,000 people, with 6,000 more living in surrounding settlements. They had a written language, they had pyramid tombs, they had armies of chariots and cavalry. They traded across the entire Sahara, connecting sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean world. They grew grapes, figs, olives, wheat, barley, in the middle of the desert, in conditions where today nothing grows. The Romans, the greatest empire on earth at the time, described the Garamantes as barbaric desert nomads. But here's what the Romans didn't want to admit. The Garamantes weren't barbarians. They were rivals, and they had figured out something Rome never could. The secret was water, but not water from the sky, water from deep underground. Hidden beneath the desert surface lies one of the largest sandstone aquifers in the world, a vast reservoir of ancient water, trapped underground during the Green Sahara period thousands of years earlier. The Garamantes found it, and then they built something to reach it that defies belief. They called them fogaras, underground irrigation tunnels, hand-dug through solid rock, some extending up to 4.5 kilometers in length. 750 kilometers of underground tunnels, total, dug entirely by hand, by an ancient civilization, in the middle of the Sahara Desert. To put that in perspective, the Channel Tunnel connecting England and France is just 50 kilometers long. The Garamantes dug 15 times that length, through solid desert rock, without modern equipment, 2,000 years ago. And here's where it gets truly extraordinary. The technology for these tunnels, called canets, originally came from Persia. But here's what confused scientists for decades. Canets in Persia work because they get water from snowmelt. Annual rainfall recharges the system. In the Sahara, there is no snowmelt. There is no annual rainfall. The system should not have worked. And yet, it worked perfectly. For nearly 1,000 years. Scientists only recently discovered why. The local topography created a unique groundwater flow system that moved ancient trapped water to exactly the right position for the fogaras to access it. In other words, the Garamantes got incredibly lucky. They built the right technology, in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time. For centuries, the Garamantes were forgotten, dismissed, buried under sand and under the prejudice of Roman historians who called them barbarians. Then in 2011, everything changed. A British team from the University of Leicester began analyzing satellite photographs of southwestern Libya. What they found made their jaws drop. More than 100 fortified farms, villages and castle-like structures. Walls still standing up to 4 meters high. Towns, cemeteries, the traces of irrigation fields, an entire civilization, hidden in plain sight, for over 1,000 years. Professor David Mattingly described the discovery with one of the most powerful comparisons in archaeological history. He said it was like someone coming to England and suddenly discovering all the medieval castles. These settlements had been completely unremarked, completely unrecorded. Because under the Gaddafi regime in Libya, serious archaeological research into the country's pre-Islamic heritage had been suppressed for decades. An entire ancient African civilization, deliberately erased from the historical record. For political reasons. The lead archaeologist said something that stopped me cold. He said the Garamantes should be central to what Libyan schoolchildren learn about their history and heritage. Instead, even today, most people in the region have completely lost touch with these ancestors. The remarkable water system that sustained their civilization for over a millennium has been so thoroughly forgotten that local inhabitants now attribute its construction to the Romans. They forgot their own greatest achievement. The Garamantes didn't fall to a foreign army. They weren't conquered. They weren't struck by plague. They ran out of water. As their population grew, as their farms expanded, as their civilization thrived, they extracted groundwater faster than it could naturally replenish. The water table dropped, then dropped further, until it fell below the level the Fogaras could reach. To go deeper would have required building new tunnels. Building new tunnels required slaves. Getting slaves required trade and military power. But without water, crops failed. Without crops, trade collapsed. Without trade, military power crumbled. It was a cascade. A civilization that had defied nature for 1,200 years, collapsed in what archaeologists believe was a remarkably short period of time. The desert reclaimed everything. The sand covered the streets. The castles, the pyramids, the tunnels, and the world forgot they ever existed. Now here is why this should terrify you. Right now, the San Joaquin Valley in California, one of the world's most productive agricultural regions, is extracting groundwater faster than it can be replenished. The Ogallala Aquifer beneath the American Great Plains, which supplies water to 8 U.S. states, is being depleted at a rate that scientists describe as catastrophic. In India, in China, in the Middle East, the same story, the same pattern, the same countdown. The Garamantes aren't just an ancient civilization that disappeared. They are a warning written in sand that the world hasn't read yet. For decades, historians assumed the Garamantes collapsed purely because they ran out of water. A simple story, a straightforward lesson. Use your resources responsibly or face the consequences. But recent research has revealed something more complicated and more troubling. The Garamantes didn't just deplete their water, they got unlucky. The aquifer beneath their civilization had a unique flow system that moved ancient trapped water to exactly the right depth for their Fogaras to access. This wasn't universal. It was a geological accident. A coincidence of topography and geology that happened to align perfectly with where the Garamantes settled. When that system finally exhausted itself, there was no deeper water to reach. No backup plan, no solution. The civilization that had been so brilliantly innovative, so ingeniously adaptive, had built everything on a foundation that was always, inevitably, going to run out. They didn't fail because they were foolish. They failed because the universe is indifferent. And that might be the most chilling lesson of all. Because we are doing the same thing. Not out of ignorance, not out of barbarism, but with full knowledge. With satellites and computers and scientific models telling us exactly what is happening. We are draining our aquifers, heating our climate, drying our rivers. The Garamantes didn't have our knowledge. We don't have their excuse. Beneath the sand of the world's largest desert, there is a city, with streets and castles and 1,200 years of human ingenuity, and a warning that nobody is reading. The Garamantes built something extraordinary. They lasted longer in that desert than the Roman Empire lasted in total, and the world forgot them in a generation. History doesn't remember the civilizations that ran out of time. It only remembers the ones that left something standing. Subscribe to Void of History, because the next story we're going to tell you has been buried even longer, and it changes everything you think you know about ancient Africa. Leave a comment below. Do you think we're heading for the same fate as the Garamantes? I'll see you in the void.